Baseball movies are a genre of their own. Usually a handful of them are released each decade. The World Series is now underway, so I figured since I never got this video out when the season started or when the playoffs started or over the entire summer, that right now would be the best and last time for a while that it would make sense to go back and talk about some of my favorite baseball movies. Now, fear not, even if you don't like the sport, the variety of these movies, from the drama to the action to the humor, the coming-of-age adventures, the redemption arcs that are all covered in these movies right next to America's pastime will lure you in. Also, this list will be outside of the 80s and 90s as well. Some of the 70s and early 2000s will be getting a showing. So let's get this list going and let's play ball. The great Roger Ebert likened this movie to a summertime version of A Christmas Story, and really I couldn't agree more. Like, that film was symbolic of what the holiday was all about. The Sandlot is a perfect encapsulation of what the summer was like as a kid back in the day, just playing with your friends and having your little crew of buddies that you did everything with. I think The Sandlot is certainly a formulaic movie. It definitely follows some tropes, from certain plot beats to different character arcs, yet the genuine charm, I think, from this fun-loving cast just makes this movie a feel-good ride that can connect to the kid inside of you, to remind you how simple your life was back then. And with baseball at the core, this coming-of-age ride is a lighthearted escape of 60s nostalgia, when baseball really was the center of the sports world. Most of us played it with our friends at one time or another, and when this movie does hit the mound, I think the direction and the cinematography shine to make this film a timeless classic. Now, The Rookie is a film that, from the aspect of a sports drama, certainly follows the formula to a T and proves that really, if the formula isn't broken, why try to fix it? This movie really works through a lot of the familiar stops that these emotionally driven and uplifting sports film often do, where the actual sport is really interchangeable, yet it shows that when done right, some story elements are just built for retelling. I think Dennis Quaid is great here. He feels just so natural in this role. He has that all-American appeal. It just works perfectly for this character, and I think Quaid delivers everything this role needed. This is a story about a broken man that gets his redemption. He finds his purpose in life and mentors some kids on the way as well. And while melodramatic in places, it's subtle, I think, and nothing that really keeps this movie from just making you feel good and making you feel like you can achieve your dreams. And with baseball at the core, once again, the sentimentality just naturally explodes from this story. It's another movie that is bolstered by a strong supporting cast as well. The organization of the subplots is tight, and The Rookie is certainly an underrated title in the sports genre. Now, this movie is actually a biopic about the 1919 Chicago White Sox. The Sox were just named American League champions. They were heading into the World Series. Then it was discovered that 8 players on the team had conspired with gamblers to intentionally lose the series, and this movie is really a fascinating exploration of those events. 8 Men Out has its share of baseball, but it's much more about the off-the-field events that took place, and it's highly intriguing. It's extremely well acted with a great cast. It has a strong musical score, and I think very artistic direction. This is just a very well-made film overall. I think this movie is also just very interesting. I think you get to know these players to an extent, enough to kind of understand their motives, I would say, and nonetheless, it can all sweep you up into the heat of this controversy that many still regard as being the darkest moment in baseball history. And I will admit, yeah, you do want to do a little bit of homework. You want to know a little bit about this scandal before sitting down to get the most of this film, because I do think the writing in that aspect does come up short just a little bit. But once you read about what happened, then you watch this movie, you will just be completely engaged. And I think from a filmmaking aspect and just an acting aspect, it delivers more than enough substance that will easily have you engaged and have your attention consumed for the duration. I'm pretty sure Bad News Bears was the first baseball movie I ever watched, and I still love it to this day. Front and center in this movie is just the snarky tone and sense of humor led by Walter Matthau, who I think just delivers a perfect performance for this movie. He's just the right amount of crotchety but lovable, and his pairing with this younger cast, I think, results in so many just heartwarming, humorous, and hilarious moments throughout this swift-moving runtime. But I mean, the movie also explores just the tenacity of competition from the eyes of a kid, as well as how a competitive edge can kind of build character. But really what shines in this movie is just, to me at least, the gruff performance from Matthau and his comical group of kids. Bad News Bear is just a movie that you can relate to. We all remember that old coach or dad or a friend that was always just grumpy, even when he was being lovable. And many of us can relate to some or all of these characters when we were kids, and that's what makes this movie so much fun. It's both a comedy for kids and for adults, and even when the story hits the baseball field, watching this clunky team of misfits come together is just a lighthearted romp of great 70s nostalgia. Now, Mr. Baseball is a bit thin on its storytelling outside of its fish out of water elements, with Selleck's character getting a double culture shock of both living with a new country as well as dealing with the differences of big league baseball and the Nippon Professional League of Japan. Yet this movie, with its full throttle humor, its locker room banter, and simplistic character arcs, and beautifully shot large-scale baseball sequences, make this movie a fun, just entertaining, feel-good ride. I think Selleck is perfect in this character. He's certainly packing his charm and his smooth demeanor, but he's also letting himself be the butt of the joke on many occasions to just really sell the laughs and the overall amusement of this movie. There are a ton of quotable lines. Selleck's free mustache rides for the ladies and free hitting lessons for the fellas line will always live rent-free in my head. And overall, I think Mr. Baseball is just a swift, fun-loving sports comedy that delivers plenty of laughs, but also puts in a ton of effort on the baseball side to give this movie that grand vibe it needs when the game is on. And this is when the action really ramps up, and this is when Mr. Baseball is at its best. It's a movie that just has a realistic, jovial atmosphere to it that will make you feel like you're a part of the Nagoya Chinichi Dragons. Now, Moneyball is definitely a deep-cut film in terms of baseball, much like the recent movie Air did with its story of Nike and the birth of Air Jordans. Moneyball takes a very niche subject, player scouting, and turns it into an evenly paced story with a charming humor, interesting mathematical concepts, and an immersive inside look at the behind-the-scenes action of making a team. This movie centers on the 2002 Oakland Athletics. They had a very limited budget for their players, so they ended up using this intricate sabermetric system of scouting players in hopes of gaining undervalued talent that no one else would find. And really, it's a fascinating film that I think gives you just a completely different look at the sport of baseball from a modern lens. And I think it's just a crisp looking film. It has a polish to it. I think Bennett Miller's direction is just very capable. It's very polished, as I said. And something else working in Moneyball's favor, in my opinion at least, is the cast. I think Brad Pitt, front and center, just carries this film like a textbook superstar would, and names like Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jonah Hill and others. There's really no shortage of strong performances here. I'm sure there are some inaccuracies with this movie for the sake of cinematic storytelling, but regardless, Moneyball is one of the smarter baseball movies that you'll see. I just absolutely love the charismatic charm that this movie delivers, and I think it's a fantastic blend of film elements. It's a fun-loving story. There's plenty of light, natural humor. It's got just enough sentimental notes to tug on the heartstrings when it needs to. The ensemble cast is amazing, with names like Gina Davis and Lori Petty and Rosie O'Donnell and even Madonna and Tom Hanks and so many others filling out this roster of actors. I will admit I never really gave this movie a shot when I was a teenager, but I finally did watch it in my early college years, and I had such a great time with just the comical adventures in this film. A League of Their Own, to me, kind of plays like a PG version of Major League with a female baseball team, and it's just a blast of fun nostalgia. I think Gina Davis is great as the team leader, and Tom Hanks is awesome in this movie as well, kind of reminding me of Walter Matthau in Bad News Bears. It's a movie that's both amusing and it's just heartwarming to watch these characters kind of grow to become friends and grow to become teammates. And with tons of baseball woven into the story, it easily cements itself as a timeless sports comedy. I mean, whether you're a baseball fan or not, you have most certainly heard of Field of Dreams. It's an iconic film from the 80s. It's been referenced countless times in pop culture. It's one of Costner's most notable films, and the "if you build it, they will come" line is legendary. Now, sure, this movie is riddled with the sappy sentimentality and equal amounts of blatant melodrama, but there's just something unconditionally lovable about this movie that allows you to overlook its dated elements, to just sit back and enjoy the blend of sports and family and fantasy and imagination as Costner builds a baseball field in a cornfield that conjures the spirits of baseball legends from the past. There's just a charm to Field of Dreams that's undeniable, and Costner, who despite laying it on real thick in this character, is great in the lead. And really, I think this movie just checks all the boxes. It's well acted from top to bottom. The direction is beautiful. The writing is intelligent. The concept is unique and ambitious. And at the core is the sport of baseball, but more so, I think, the spirit of baseball and the bond that the sport has on people and the togetherness that comes from it. And I don't think any film just captures baseball as America's pastime as well as Field of Dreams does. What I love the most about Bull Durham is that it's able to navigate amongst so many other familiar tropes from a few different genres while still managing to end up being its own unique movie with very few borrowed elements. Bull Durham is a charming little romantic story, it's a hilarious comedy, and it's really a creative look at the sport of baseball by centering on the minor leagues and all the differences from the bigs. The sport is smaller at that stage, but the intensity and the competition of the game is still there, and it dials up when needed. And Costner, Robbins, and Sarandon are all fantastic. Costner really feels like he's having so much fun in this role, as if he almost wanted to be a baseball player more than an actor. Sarandon is just devilishly sexy with a blend of toughness from being around all the players, but still a sincerity and a softness there that really plays perfectly during the dramatically driven moments of the movie. Then you get Tim Robbins, who is just world-class awesome in this role. He without a doubt is going all in on this character, and he's hilarious, he's unpredictable, and just a great counter to the traditional character type of the playboy character played by Costner. And all of this just blends into a movie that just feels like a trip to the minors, and it's a complete blast all these years later. I will always consider Major League not only to be the best baseball movie to ever grace the silver screen, but I would also contend that it's the best sports comedy ever to be brought to film. I adore this movie. I remember my sophomore year in high school, my first real serious girlfriend dumped me on the party on the last day of school. I spent much of the summer moping around and just watching this movie on repeat to heal myself. The cast here is fantastic from top to bottom. Everybody, in my opinion, is perfect for the personality and the angle of humor needed from their character. And I think this movie just really feels like a look behind the curtain at big league baseball during the 80s and 90s, from the locker room banter to the various team dynamics to the underdog story, the groupies, the city rallying for their team. Major League is everything nostalgic about baseball, and it just lines itself with a full throttle sense of humor that can deliver repeated laughs. However, despite being a great comedy, this movie still puts the game first. Baseball lines this film, and when the final act hits and Bob Uecker's spirited calling of the game takes over the final 20 minutes, Major League delivers the on-the-field thrills that I think will just lift your spirits even if you've seen this movie 1,000 times. And that's it for today, guys. That wraps up my favorite baseball movies video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments of some of these films. If you've seen them, let me know what some of your favorite baseball movies are. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Your viewership and your commenting on my videos make this such a fun thing to do. It's a total blast communicating with you guys. Be on the lookout for my next video coming soon. It's either going to be a Lost 90s movie episode 6 or a retrospective video on Tom Hanks's The Burbs. I haven't figured it out yet, but either one should be a blast. I hope to see you guys all back for that. And until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?